Welcome everyone to the PYRESWAP show. I hope you guys are excited today. I see you guys are not thrilled at the reduced level of streaming, but this is actually the increased level of working. Yeah, the things that make you feel good about being felt is not the same thing that actually produces output. Anyways, I wanted to have like a complete promotional poster image done today because I talked about having content ready, right? You guys remember that? Actually, hang on. I'm gonna move this light real quick. Just move it. There we go. Okay, that's way better, right? Can you guys see me better now? I'm more visible. Fantastic. Anyways, so I wanted to have like a complete promotional, almost like a complete promotional poster done for our actual fantasy fiction as the content to produce to promote today, because we actually have two Twitter ambassadors getting onboarded. I've been waiting to announce that since I think Friday, so I think I'll be making that announcement tomorrow. I think officially, I'm gonna verify like when the announcement is good to be made, but I believe tomorrow I can make that announcement, and I'll also probably tomorrow announce the promotional poster, as it were, for lack of a better way to describe it. And in lieu of having the promotional poster today, I figured I would just have Pyre Producer put on the screen. We can go through these images. I got like a dozen or so images. Oh, he's already put them in the chat. Oh, wow. Okay, I would rather him perhaps throw them up in the thing. The image you're seeing there, first of all, it looks like kind of like Wizard Jesus in his own way. You know what I mean? And that right there is not a final output. You guys are seeing some kind of like tweaks being made. Could I get the actual like the pose sheets, and you can actually just take Discord off the screen, and we can just go to. Yeah. I would say like minimize Discord and just pull up that. Yeah, something like that. So on screen right here, you can see these are what you call a multi-view pose. Does that make sense? Can you guys see what I'm looking at here on screen? And basically what this does is you take an input of a character and it actually through AI automatically multi-poses it, so you can in fact put this character into more scenes and more different angles. Now, none of the stuff that I'm showing you right now is the final output. This is all the making of, because there's still problems with this. This one right here, first of all, the belt is visible from the back, which is not supposed to be able to do. The second one you're seeing here is the one from yesterday that had his hat on still. So because his hat was on, you can kind of see that the face was grafting a bit weird to the brim of the hat, and it caused a bunch of problems with his eyeballs as well. Anyways, these are, there was actually dozens of iterations in between, like yesterday and today. But I figured I would just show you actual content sneak peeks so you guys have like a better understanding of what's going on over here. I think I'm going to get a whole bunch of the visuals like handled. As far as content, we can begin like leaking out to you. Does that make sense? That we might have new visual content to announce every week, while you guys are basically patiently waiting. I can make those through announcements. And this right here is the protagonist of our fictional world, or our fictional journey, as it were. His name is Fergus Fenbrook, and this version of him here is just not true to form. It just makes him look about 20 years older, and it looks like he's on roids. Does that make sense to you guys? Can you guys hear me? Fantastic. So yeah, Javery, and I'm talking to Abolito and Javery. He looks like, in my opinion, he looks like he's about 45 and on roids, and like maybe he just got divorced and he's starting to lift weights again. Yeah. But Javery, a bit too strong. So the original here, in fact, maybe I'll even have this. Maybe I even have this on the actual. Yeah, let me show you an actual source image that's correct. Here you go. This is an actual source image that's correct. Okay, this is how he's supposed to look. He's supposed to look like he's in his mid-20s. Does that make sense? And mid-20s is good because it's like, okay, he's still in like a learning age. Does that make sense? And he's also got the energy to go on a fucking journey. Does that make sense? He's not past the point where he doesn't want to like leave the house anymore and he just wants to retire. Does that make sense? So he's got to be like adventuring age. You get what I'm saying? And he's also got to, 25 is a great age for learning as well. Does that make sense? Also, 25 is a good age, I think, because it's like a, good protagonists are around that age. Does that make sense? Well, Javery, like that's my age, right? Or actually, I'm 36 now or whatever, right? But yeah, exactly that. But also, 35 people look vastly different. Does that make sense? Like people still think I'm like 27, right? And I'm closer to 37. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so I'll be turning 37 this year, which is still fucking mind blowing, right? But like people still think I'm 27. Do you get what I'm saying? So the important thing is that like he looks like he's around 25 to 27. All of like the legendary protagonists like Luke Skywalker or like Hamlet or even it's hard to describe it. But the point being is that since this is like an educational journey, right? That's what it is. Since this is an educational journey, him being closer to an age where somebody would be more appropriately still in college, that's kind of the angle we're looking for. Also, we want his relationship to be with his father to be a little bit closer to, how do I describe this? We want him to have a relationship where his father is still very much like instructing him, if that makes sense. And this will all make more sense. But the point of it is that what I'm working on right now is I'm working on getting his character sheet dialed in, meaning those 6 poses and all those 6 faces. Mr. Producer, if you could in fact show more of the faces, just in photo, you don't gotta put it in Discord. Yeah, like just on screen. Yeah, he would prefer to put it in Discord, I guess. You can just put all 6 of them in chat then. Just put all face pictures in chat then. Yeah. For those of you who can see it, yeah, you can set up as a batch. Yeah, and that way we can zoom all. Okay, so some of them have hats. Some of them are like a little bit deformed. Does that make sense? One of them put the eye up at the eyebrow. He looks a little bit like an anime demon. Then this one right here, he looks a little bit like, I don't know, Captain Jack Sparrow, but angry. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, the point of it is, it's like he's still just a bit too old. And yeah, the way that I would describe it is he looks kind of like he works security at a nightclub in Dubai. Does that make sense? He looks like he oils his beard, and he's also a bit on roids, and he could also sell you cocaine, or at least his friend could. That's just like the vibe I get from some of this stuff. Does that make sense? Like he's got his eyebrows done, but he also like is on fucking roids. Do you know what I mean? Okay, maybe you guys don't know who I mean, but anyways, the point of it is that we are, in fact, yeah, he's DJing right now. But the point of it is that we're gonna dial him down to look less 3D. He looks too goddamn chiseled. Yeah, he knows the guy, exactly. He needs to look a little less chiseled, and he needs to look a little bit cozier in his animation. And this is at least the content that I have to show you guys today. Because I wanted to give you like a whole movie poster where it's him out in the countryside, or he's out in the woods smoking his pipe. Do you know what I mean? He's sitting on a tree stump. One of those promotional posters, possibly use the log line. For those of you who know that we have a great little log line that describes the actual plot line. Anyways, I really do think those are now like 24 hours away because I just hit like this power streak of iterations, and it just so happened that we have to show the PYRESWAP show today. So I couldn't like say, hey guys, I don't have any content to show you. Give me 24 hours. I'll just show you where some of the pictures I can show you now to show you like work in progress. Anyways, I'm using a cloud GPU system that has 80 gigabytes of VRAM. So it's like 5 computers at once. And I'm literally using a rental service. Now, as I started using this service over the last 3 days, I spent, I think, 12 hours on Saturday, maybe 13 hours yesterday, and then I think 15 hours yesterday because I was trying so hard to get to an iteration of his face that we could use for actual movie posters. So after 39 hours and 3 days, I actually reached out to a buddy of mine who works, I know, in cloud computing, and he's actually selling a company He's IPOing, I think, later this year. I think like Q3. And I talked to him a little bit yesterday morning, and he has over 1 terabyte of VRAM he could give me access to, which is about 12 times more than the enterprise packages in VRAM right now. Does that make sense? Like he can fucking, he has access to it. Now I'm talking to him on Thursday of this week to see if I even need a terabyte, right? But it would make it so that we can iterate at speeds, I don't know, at superhuman speeds, and we could probably make this make this entire project a case study for his own business, if that makes sense, right? Maybe I'll work something out like that out. I don't know if I need an entire terabyte of VRAM. Right now I'm working with 80, and I'm very pleased. I was working with 16 on Saturday and Sunday, and while that was way faster, than what I was doing on Thursday and Friday, I'm now up at 80 gigs, and like iterating these now can take like less than 7 minutes. It used to take like 45 minutes to 2 hours, and then when I first started doing it, it took like 16 hours, something like that. So I've now got it down to like under 10 minutes, what used to take 16 hours. So I'm only going to get faster at this. But I think really it's been a very, very productive week. And, I know, Jabber. And the thing is, do you guys remember me saying if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe? Do you guys remember me saying that quote? It was during one of these last streams. Yeah, that's literally been the process, because if I talked about the last 39 hours of working, I would say like 32 of them have just been configuring like this cloud system and like learning things, because I've had to basically become an amateur programmer just on configuring it. The system I use is called Comfy UI. Here, I'll write that on the board if you guys want to. And Comfy UI is almost like this factory-based workflow for AI creative generations. Really, it can do other things too. It can make like audio and shit as well. It can even do animations, Now, by the way, for those of you who have heard me talk about the structure of content, we were going to make this storybook style, meaning we put the characters in pictures and then show you basically a panning slideshow. Does that make sense? Like a panning slideshow. If I get access to the full terabyte, we could do animations. Does that make sense? Like, meaning the investment of Fergus Fenbrook could be a fucking cartoon, like an animation. The aesthetic I'm going for, by the way, well, Javer, you know what? It's about, you got your planning stage, but then you have your iteration stage, which is also like the execution stage. So they both matter. What some people don't like is spending too much in planning. But then I think after you've done a whole bunch of execution and you're not getting results, you need to go back to planning and research and figure out what the fuck is going on. And that's where I went in 2024. But point being now, I want you guys to know the things that I'm working with in Comfy UI, back in November, these things didn't exist. Are you guys aware? So I'm using like the bleeding edge of AI to actually make our content now. Does that make sense? Like the stuff that I'm working on is prone to bugs because I'm actually an early adopter of it. So anyways, if I do get access to the full terabyte, we might be able to make animations. If not, fuck it, whatever. The whole thing is meant for, people didn't have animations back in the day when they were sitting around campfires either, right? So, point being, that's what I'm working on. I'm not the only person generating AI, by the way. We have Whisper helping me with all of the scenery. So, I'm going to be giving Whisper these prose descriptions of all the scenery, meaning all the places that our protagonist goes to. Does that make sense? Because the whole plot line is following the protagonist. So effectively, this scenery, then this scene, then this scene, then this scene. Does that make sense? So Whisper is going to be on his own. Yeah, the tavern is okay. Yeah, I think there's maybe 2 taverns. Anyways, but yeah, the point being is that the scenes the scenes are getting generated by somebody else. So I'm just going to be getting these characters dialed in so that they are like perfectly posable like they're our own paper characters. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. Okay. Do you guys? Yeah. I hope you guys like can find some like. Holy shit. I wanted to like depart this show, or should I say bring this show to a close with some type of like advice on how to watch your mental state. Because I don't think people realize that like they choose their mental state every day. Like if you're letting external stuff choose your mental state every day, like you're not gonna have any grip on your life ever. Does that make sense? Like if I allowed external factors to choose my mental state, there would be no point in betting on me. Does that make sense? Like other people, you know, they're too reactive, so they can't get 15 hours of work, you know, on a Monday if that's what was required from them, right? Like you're just always gonna be a windsock. You're gonna be a thermometer. You're not gonna be the thermostat. Does that make sense? Like learning how to be your own be the thermostat is what matters. I think that people aren't listening to me about that shit. Okay, yeah. And by the way, if you guys are like worried that you think other people in the community are not being as responsive or whatever, we're only gonna get like better people. Does that make sense? Like if you're worried about like people falling off, I want you to know there's another reason that my standard of quality is so high on this content. Once somebody goes all the way through all 10 videos of Learn Pyre, not only are they going to be like smart enough to understand how the tokenomics work, I also know something else that's very, very critical. Do you guys know what that is? Do you guys know what I already kind of know about them? Any guesses? Okay, Abilene, I'll tell you. I know that I can probably find this person likable. Yep. Like me knowing nothing about them other than the fact that they went through all 10 videos. If they went through all 10 videos, they've now been exposed to me in 10 different videos. Does that make sense? What I mean to say is, in these 10 videos, I basically describe a bit of my values, a bit of my whole vision. I describe what I consider false beliefs about I think what other people use to analyze the crypto space. And I describe other things like, I don't know, the idea that meme coins are a passing fad and can't ever possibly be any type of real investment product. You know what I mean? And these things like that, if they agree with me, there's probably stuff that you have to agree with me in all 10 videos in order to keep wanting to listen to me. Does that make sense? And if they go through all 10 videos, then they can find agreement with me on at least 10 points, that likely means that like I would be able to find something likable about them because they clearly find something likable about me. Does that make sense to you guys? And like they're choosing to find the things that are, they're choosing to find what they like about me is literally the stuff that I'm presenting as part of like a strategy. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. Like I'm gonna have commonality with them in the values I demonstrated in this video funnel, right? And therefore, Javery, why is it important that I like my user base? Why do you guys think? Because if I like my user base, I'm going to care about them more. Does that not make sense? Right? Right. Yeah. So I'm making sure that I care about the user base. I don't think enough people have the maturity to understand that you have to kind of outsmart yourself if you want to get like the maximum results out of yourself. Like you have to learn how to use your higher brain to kind of entrap your lower brain. Does that make sense? This is actually the way that you get like I guess, levels of self-control that other people don't understand. It comes from a discipline. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly, Odin. Exactly. So, like, Odin, like, if I know that somebody went through this journey with me and they like my story and they agree with my value points, does that make sense? And also, by the way, the first video is me talking about my dad's death. Like, it's like a personal story. Does that make sense? So if I start off by, like, showing vulnerability, then making a bunch of arguments about what's true and what's false, does that make sense? Then I literally get them to buy Pyre Phantom, right? No questions asked. We don't talk about anything other than, like, you're gonna buy Pyre Phantom. Does that make sense? Like, you're gonna get some gas on Phantom and you're buying Pyre Phantom. We don't care about whether it's listed on a centralized exchange. We don't care about, like, the Sonic Labs thing. We don't care about it, right? Like, we're just saying, like, you're gonna come to Pyre Phantom for this, right? And then we literally we walk them, we walk them through the story, which teaches them the 12 concepts, and then at the very end, they're rewarded with, like, the final blast off moment. And do you guys know what the final blast off is? Like, the 5 questions of the blast off phase? Yeah, Jabri, you're 100% correct. And Jabri, you know what I realized, Jabri? In order for me to teach that to my user base, I'll also need to put that in fantasy fiction. Isn't that interesting? I realized that I'm pretty sure this works. Does that make sense? And I realized if I can teach people economics through the system, like if I can teach them the basic economics they would need to understand the 5 questions, I can also maybe make them less shitty in other ways. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but, like, I can possibly help people in other ways through the content. I'm talking about later, not learn Pyre. Does that make sense? I'm talking about, like, later books, later stories I can make. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Inside the same universe. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, I can make some self-improvement concepts in there too. Do you guys get what I'm saying? I can make an entire book, as it were, on self-improvement concepts. Nothing with economics. Does that make sense? Okay, so do you guys know what, like, the five questions of the final stage are? Maybe you guys don't know what this is. Let me see if I can get a thicker marker. Hang on. I'm feeling good today. Okay, so this was Comfy UI. If you guys want to look up Comfy UI, you can. Maybe I'll put screenshots of it later. I want to show you guys, like, the actual promotional poster because I happen to be a decent image editor, especially when I put work in. All of the artwork, by the way, that we've done so far is through me with a little bit of with AI assistance. But I also do. I've been using GIMP 2 for 10 years, so, like, I know some Adobe stuff as well. Thank you, Jabri. Yeah, you're a game dev. We have a guy in the circus may or may not work for a very, very high-end game company. Yeah. Oh, hey, sounds good. Hey, by the way, our devs continue to work on games. They continue to fucking build games, and more on that way later. So the 5 questions of, like, the final phase, and this means that after people watch 10 videos and they get their second buy-in of Pyre Phantom, there's 5 questions that they kind of need to know, right? Man, I knew this marker was going to disappoint me. All right, hang on, one more time. All right. Okay. We'll just say it's all fucking for Pyre Phantom. How about that? Okay, can you guys read that, or is it completely, is it just not visible? It's not Bethesda. Yeah, no. Jeffrey, just because I take a long time does not mean that Circus Hill will work at Bethesda. Does that make sense? Yeah. 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 Isn't that a good joke? Isn't that a good joke? PYRESWAP, did you like that joke? Yeah. Yeah, just because we're behind schedule does not mean that we're associated with Bethesda. Okay. Okay, see, even Todd Howard deals Okay, hang on. Alright. Oh, but you know, it's funny you mentioned Bethesda, because I was saying to Pyre Producer that Fergus looks like the dude at the beginning of Skyrim. You know in the beginning of Skyrim where you can go with fucking the Stormcloak guy, or you go with the Imperial guy? You know what I'm talking about? Odin, I got a black marker here. Yeah, he looks too much like the Imperial guy. You know, the guy that's like, you know, about to execute you and then he doesn't. You know what I mean? Anyways, okay. I'm going to rewrite this now. Okay, can you guys read that it says when, by, and why? I believe that too. I don't hate Skyrim myself. I think Skyrim was, Skyrim was probably in my top 10 games for sure. Fucking masterpiece, for real. Although, by the way, I am kind of one of those Morrowind guys though. Yeah, so like, I mean, granted, like, you go back and look at it, and it looks like there's no way it looked like this back then, but it did. But yeah, Morrowind was great. Like Morrowind, like I'm so surprised like what a sleeper game that was, and it was one of my favorite games. Skyrim is very good though, but it's like it seems like they made it a lot prettier, but then also they kind of made it dumber. You know, it's like a dumber version of Morrowind or Oblivion. I barely played Oblivion too, which is kind of crazy. But anyways, yeah. Oh, you know somebody is rebuilding all of Morrowind inside as a Skyrim mod, or like they might have already done it. Yeah, did you know this? Yeah. let's stay on topic. Oh yeah, Oblivion in Skyrim? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have no idea. It might be. Okay, so you can mostly see this. Alright, so this means, let me see. This is Pyre Phantom up here, right? Let me see. Okay, anyways, the questions are what matters. When buy and why, when sell and why, when hold and why, when use and why. Can you guys see these 4 questions at least? I know I'm a little bit off screen here. I'll take a knee. I'll just kneel. I'm kidding. Okay, fantastic. So, after people watch the 10th video, they are in fact taken to like a page 11. And believe it or not, by the way, channelers, since a few of you are on here, these are actually, these 5 questions, we're going to be sending all new people into the Theurgy channel to ask these questions. We might program a bot to help answer these questions. Does that make sense? Like, so they can in fact type in ! blast off or whatever, and then it starts talking about these 5 questions. But when, by, and why, it basically describes the entire relationship that Pyre Phantom has with TWAP, as well as the TWAPs of 2-ohm, 3-ohm, and Z-ohm. Make sense? right? So it basically describes that like when these are correct, these are very brutalistically simple checklists, but I realize that it hasn't been presented to people in this brutalistically simple way. But like that's literally what gets told them. Then when, sell, and why, right? And does everyone know the when, sell, and why like criteria? You would probably sell when it's overpay, right? Or whenever the fuck you want, right? Make sense? You might also want to sell it if you think meterage is going to bring it down, like ahead of time. Does that make sense? Because what's going to happen is you're going to make the money from selling it, or the meterage is going to make the money from fucking meeting it. Do you know what I mean? Like either way, it's getting sold. Do you guys know what I mean there? Okay, we'll more on that way later. Then you have when, hold, and why, right? And that's like another set of scenarios. When this, and this, you should probably hold. Make sense? We could always say, you might want to always hold it, blah, 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 right? Especially in liquidity or whatever the fuck it is. And then when use and why. When use, and that's when we talk about the active staking, the IWV, the in-condition withdrawal. Make sense? By the way, more use cases to Pyre Phantom are coming out eventually. We're just going to stick with this one right now. Does that make sense? Because I think the IWV being the whole centerpiece of deflation, as it were. More on that fucking later. But like, when, use, and why. We basically describe the whole epoch system. And you get what I'm saying? Yeah, Jerry, some of it is just like dice games. Like literally, but I'll get more on that later. Yeah, but in phase 2, we will have, okay, we're going to have this marketing thing done. Like Learn Pyre will be done before you have like another major use case. But this is all about Pyre Phantom. When we have more use cases, then these kind of change these answers. Now, does anyone here understand these 4 questions? Everybody listening right now, let me see who I got. Okay, so I got like a handful of people, right? Do you guys at least understand these 4 questions, right? I think that you guys, if you understand TWAPs and you understand the whole utility threshold concept, this is clear, correct? Okay, that's literally it, right? And I realized that the reason utility thresholds are so popular as diagrams is because they really do help people explain their decisions. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mack. Yes, indeed. But this 5th question, which I'm going to call WAYHAT forever now. Does that make sense? Can you guys see it says WAYHAT? W-A-Y-H-A-T. You know, Dr. Mack, you write that, and there's other people like in crypto that like that's 100% no irony the strategy. Yeah, it's definitely like we're definitely like culturally separated from. Never mind. But you know what? Hey, I realized what Learn Pyre and this whole thing taught me is about meeting people where they are. You cannot lead people by starting where you are. You have to meet them where they are. I actually debuted Act 3 of the book, of the script to the circus, and I realized I was not meeting people where they are. So like the next piece of script, the next manuscript I debut internally will be Act 1, because you can't really launch people into Chapter 67. You have to bring them to Chapter 1 first, otherwise they can't care about Chapter 67. And that's the classic 5 move of trying to bring people to the PhD level when they haven't gotten the 101. So Learn Pyre is about bringing people through the 101 all the way to the, well, not really the 501, but through at least through finishing 101. Let's put it that way. Does that make sense? Hey, Javery, and like again, you've also been exposed to more schema than them. You know what I mean? Hey, Javery, I want only more to be able to teach more complicated things, because Javery, when we get into later phases and we actually start doing fucking banking, it does require you having, it does require that you at least understand probably a good few dozen concepts. Yeah. Like, by the way, banking is not that hard. If you can manage a refrigerator, you can manage a bank. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, if you can manage a refrigerator where you're like, oh, we need milk. We have milk. We need milk. Does that make sense? Do you guys know that dance? Do you guys know how that works? How a refrigerator in a kitchen works? Most of you first worlders that have a refrigerator in your kitchen? You guys know the whole dance? Okay, Jerry, well done. But you guys get what I'm saying, right? So, like, Learn Pyre does not get people to the banker level. It gets people to the ability where they can be taught these 5 questions and they're not going to fuck it up. Does that make sense? Like if we go through these 5 questions, they're now going to be able to understand why they want the token and how it helps them. Make sense? And then when we introduce Pyre Phantom this way, that now allows us to teach them about 2 ohm, 3 ohm, and Z ohm without the fucking tomb fork. Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm saying? Like they now think about 2 ohm, 3 ohm, and Z ohm without the background of like thinking about, you know what I'm talking about, 2022. Like they literally have a different frame of reference about it because they're being learned in different ways. Way hat means what about you and how about them? What about you and how about them? I could make it hey hat too, but I don't know. I think way hat seems easier to remember. Yeah, they later on learn about 2 shares, but to be honest, Javery, they're not going to care about 2 shares until TWAP is way higher. Does that make sense? They'll be like, oh, does that make sense? Because they're going to learn about the way a tomb fork works almost like the other direction. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyways, we'll get there when we get there. But way hat means what about you and how about them? Because as we begin teaching hundreds of people these 4 things, by the way, in the Theurgy channel, does that make sense? And if you're a channeler listening to this, this is arguably what people care about the most. Does that make sense? Like, if these 4 questions can be answered, they now understand the token. Make sense? And then the way hat is what happens when too many people are thinking about the same strategy. So the strategy oversaturates, so people start shifting their strategy. Does that make sense? They begin speculating a little sooner, right? So way hat is the question that allows for the deviation from this. But I want you guys to know something. In the future, okay, so let's say we get up to 0.87 TWAP, and then for whatever reason a nuclear bomb goes off, and the markets crash, right? So the markets crash all the way down to 0.36 TWAP. Does that make sense? Or 0.03. We'll make it fucking lower, right? The solution now forever that we always have is learn Pyre. If you ever want the market to get back to rationality, that just requires more people going through the funnel. Does that make sense? The funnel is what corrects the market back to rationality because we're making people's brains rational again. Does that make sense? Whether these are type 3 engagers that never watched the shit in the first place that we can turn into type 2 engagers or type 1 engagers, or whether they're new people completely, sending them through Learn Pyre is what will make the market return to rationality. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? Meaning we'll get back to vibrattility. We'll get back to the fucking vibratil range, which is where it's designed to kind of hang out. Does that make sense? Way hat also pulls the market out of rationality, but it's fine. Yeah, like we just deal with that as a variable in the equation. You guys have no idea what I'm saying. I sound like is this techno babble? Anyways, okay. That's a wrap then. Any questions? This is, I'm going to be able to make an announcement this week concerning new Twitter ambassadors. Alessio is one of them. By the way, Alessio, I think, is a Twitter ambassador now. So, there's a second one too. And then I'll also debut a fucking promotional poster for the investment of Fergus Fenbrook. Do you guys have any questions? All right. Have a great rest of your day. Announcement coming this week. Goodbye.